two. I'm on two different places. That's weird.
Is
I don't know why I'm on two separate places.
Irvin watching?
Yeah, he would be on he's on his own phone.
Oh, I
So,
wouldn't say Kiki.
no. Oh, I'm the master of ceremonies. Oh, how fun.
Oh, what time is it?
Hold on, I gotta mute it.
3:00.
Hello?
Kiki, I muted you. I muted everybody. Um, we're going to begin the show pretty soon. And we want to thank you all for joining us. And if you'll remember to keep yourself muted while our storytellers are telling their story, I think when the 4 stories are told at the end of the program, we will unmute your mics and you can ask one question. Pick who it is you want to ask one question of, and we will try to decide if these stories are true or false. And
Fact or fiction.
fact or fiction. Yes, the name. Hence the name.
Hence the name. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. Suddenly, everyone that lives here has decided to get really loud outside my door. So I'm just going to remind them. Thank you.
I don't hear them though. Oh, there's Maya.
I want them to watch, not talk about dog food. So we have a fun show lined up today. We have
Bernadette from Paris.
Bernadette from Paris. Where is Bernadette? I don't see her.
Up in my left-hand corner.
Oh, there she is. See, you can tell she's from Paris.
Where is Marcia from? I forgot.
Marsha's from
Chicago
Chicago
too?
Marsha, where are you from? We're gonna unmute yourself.
Evanston.
Evanston. So okay, so Illinois area. Okay, good.
You know what the really cool thing is? Irv and Ruth know each other from high school time.
Crazy. So I suspect they grew up in Chicago.
I suspect they did. Irv, did you both go to high school together?
You can unmute yourself. Irv.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
I think I may be older though.
What high school did you guys go to?
University of Chicago Lab School.
Actually, I was a public school kid. We both grew up on the South Side,
Where'd you go to high school? Where'd you go to school, Ruth?
South Shore.
South Shore. Our friend Miriam Golden's from that area. Hi, Miriam. In fact, I think she even went to the lab school for a while, if not.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, Miriam.
Hi.
Miriam.
I was a lab school dropout.
Miriam was a lab school dropout. We'll be telling that story next time.
You got to echo.
Because I'm two Kikis and I don't know why.
Oh, you got to mute one of them.
How do you change it so we can see everybody?
Oh,
Oh, do you know Lois Dubin?
I do.
Ruth, did you not send her the link?
I'm trying to. I thought I did, but maybe I didn't. I'm trying to send it to her now.
It was in that email that I sent this morning.
No, I'm just sending it now.
Okay, good.
Sammy, am I not? I'm good now, right?
Yeah,
With-
stopped echoing, yeah.
Great, great,
And I think
great.
there's only one, you only have one square now.
Okay, there we go. One more minute. We'll see if Ruth's friend can come on. And
Bernadette, are you expecting anyone? Oh, should we
you
wait?
can unmute Bernadette.
'Cause she's gonna be first. But I'm gonna sing a little song because today is May 1st.
Yes.
And if y'all,
So we're gonna. I'm gonna have everybody but Sammy mute. If you guys can mute yourself, that'd be great.
test. Welcome to Storytellers Fact or Fiction. On the first warm day, on the first warm day in May, I hope you'll come a-calling and bring me a big bouquet. On the first warm night, when the moon is shining bright, we won't feel much like talking, so kiss me and hold me tight. Then we'll climb the hill, and there beneath a cherry tree, where all is still, you'll say, marry me, oh, marry, marry me, the first warm day, on the first warm day in May. We'll teach the birds and bees a thing or two. See how I love you. We'll climb a hill, and there beneath a cherry tree, where all is still, you'll say, marry me, oh, marry, marry me, the first warm day, on the first warm day in May. We'll teach the birds and bees a thing or two. See how I love you. Because I couldn't find a song that fit the theme, I figured I'd find a song that fit the first day of May.
This is the theme. This is the theme, and I love that song. Thanks. I love you too, Sam.
Love you all. Thank
This
you.
is the
Thank
theme. It's may we, or may we.
This is for sure.
Everything fits, right? Thanks so much, everyone, for coming. Appreciate our old friends who have been to storytelling event before, Fact or Fiction. And we've made some new friends today. Thanks so much. Love Sammy's song. And boy, we have a great lineup today. We have our friend Bernadette Martin from France. This is our second French song storyteller, right? We have one before?
Yeah, Donna was on from Paris.
Anna, man, we got a great, Sammy's got a great French connection from her Thursday pop-up Chicago to Paris song event, which is wonderful. And she'll send things out so you guys could all join that and enjoy it. And then we've got Irv Levinson, who's over by there with the rest of his family. And Irv went to high school with Ruth Fuerst, who's actually going to be telling her story today too. And then I have my dear friend Macia Brainin from Evanston, who I've known since forever. So thanks so much. And anything else you'd like to say, Stevie?
Yeah, I was just, right before the show started, I made a little change in Bernadette's bio, and I just wanted to make sure that you saw that when you're going to do your interview.
Oh my golly, did she change her life story?
Maybe just a tad, and there might be some things in there that you find interesting and you would like to
I'm going to check into
talk
that
about.
right now. So, without further ado, Bernadette, Bernadette. Do people always sing that song to you? Of course. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I have to find out all about you. Sammy, you start. Yes, find out what's going on with Bernadette.
So we've already, I met Bernadette. I'm going to put the speaker view on right now. And Bernadette, say something so that you can.
Hello, bonjour from Paris.
Are you muted, Bernadette?
No, can you hear me now? Is this
Yeah.
better?
Yes, 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 yes.
So I wanted to say bonjour from Paris to all of you.
Sure.
Huh? Wow, Bernadette, I'm just reading this. Bernadette is lives in Paris and in Seattle. Am I right?
Yeah, I go back and forth also to Los Angeles, which is where I grew up.
Fabulous. And then Bernadette has also created a storytelling salon that's a modern day reflection of the 17th and 18th century Parisian salons adapted to the 20th century and now, of course, on Zoom. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Bernadette?
Well, I started these in 2014, and originally they were at my my apartment, and I would cook for 30 people, and I would have a storyteller who could be a musician, artist, singer, uh, a dancer. And so the idea would be to have a nice meal and then to hear the storyteller's story. And if they were an entertainer, they would entertain as well.
Wow.
And so they went online as of last year, and Sammy has been a part of my storytelling salons. She's the storytelling salon accompanist. And so she wrote my jingle, and she provides some piano accompaniment for interludes. And yeah, and I've been really fortunate to have met
It's a
Sammy.
very interesting concept. I like it. I like it a lot.
Wow. So you wrote the jingle, Sammy.
For
Website.
for my website and for my Zoom events.
That's great, Bernadette. How did you choose to live out of the country in Paris?
Well, so I grew up in Los Angeles, and I've always wanted to live abroad and study languages. I was just smitten at a young age by a distant relative who came over from Germany, and just, I was like maybe 10 years old, and she said, Bernadette, when you're older, if you want to come over to Liechtenstein, which is where she lived, and work in my shop, you can do that. Well, it was castles, princes. I mean, come on. So I started studying languages, and because my grandparents were born in Ireland, I was eligible to get an Irish passport. So that solved lots of problems. And I did an international MBA at Thunderbird in Arizona, and then so my career has been all over the world, Asia and Europe and Canada, mostly in marketing and branding. And I'm also a career consultant, and I lecture at different universities in Seattle and France. But these storytelling salons are something I do, in conjunction with what my professional career is. It's a little bit on the side, but I love doing them and showcasing artists and musicians.
Sounds like a beautiful passion. I can't wait to hear your story, Bernadette.
Well, it's actually okay. It's a little bit about my story, but it's also a story about my brother.
Sounds good. Well, with that, help me welcome Bernadette Martin and her story, A Tribute to Bernie.
Thank you. Yes. First, I want to thank Kiki and Sammy for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit about my story, but it's primarily about my brother, Bernie. And I am going to share my screen because I have a few photos to show you. And it should pop up. So you should see a cute picture of a little boy with muddy feet. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Bernard Antone Martin, October 19th, 1940, and passed February 3rd, 2021. Bernard, or Bernie as we called him, was my oldest brother. Now, I'm from a family of 10. There's Teresa. There's a 20-year gap between the oldest and the youngest. So I'm number 9. So there's Teresa, Bernadette, Anton, Mary Ellen, Chris over here, Sean, Kevin, Judy, David, and Bernie. I always loved telling people that I was from a family of 10. I was proud of it. I remember one time maybe I was 10 or 11 or so, on the schoolyard playground, and there was this new kid. And he said, "Oh, so what's your name?" And I said, "Bernadette." And he said, "Oh, you mean Bernie?" And I said, "No, I'm from a family of 10, and my oldest brother is named Bernie." And he said, "Oh, you mean your parents, they ran out of names when they came to you, so they had to call you the same name?" Ugh, he was so irritating. And then on top of that, he said, "Well, gosh, with such a big family, do you know all your brothers and sisters?" I thought, oh, what a jerk. I felt like slapping him, but instead I just beat him in a running race on the playground and creamed him. Well, did I know my oldest brother, Bernie? As I mentioned, there was a 20-year gap. So in fact, I only remember 5 of us living at home under the same roof. I mean, some people think, oh, family of 10, total mayhem. Well, not at all the case. My dad was of German descent. We had formal dinners. He had a cloth napkin, a napkin ring. The plates were heated before we ate. We said grace before meals. No one was excused from the table unless they had a good excuse, and we didn't really dare ask. I mean, it wasn't as so bad as Sound of Music and the Von Trapp family, but it was more, in that direction. And like I said, I don't remember all 10 of us under the same roof. Why? Because, well, Bernie, he was, at a young age, he thought he might become a priest, and he was off to the seminary. Well, that didn't last long. I think it was too much Latin. But anyway, he married at a young age his sweetheart, Pat. And then my other older siblings, David here, he was off to Seattle on a scholarship, football scholarship. Judy went up to Seattle as well for university. Kevin was in boot camp. Sean went to Vietnam. My brother Chris was avoiding the draft, so he never went. But I pretty much remember 5 of us under the same roof. And my memory of Bernie at a young age, well, when I see pictures of his wedding, I was all of 4. All I remember are my white patent leather shoes and scooting across the parish hall, feeling like an ice skater. But like I said, I don't have any memories of Bernie growing up. In fact, I don't even remember having a one-on-one conversation with my brother Bernie. I mean, I was the only one of the 10 that ventured out of the country. My other siblings, were dispersed amongst different states, but I was the only one that really most of my life has not been in the U.S. But of course, I would come home for weddings, funerals, parties, visits, and I would always see my family and Bernie. Well, how would you describe Bernie? I always had a big Bernie bear hug ready for you, just described as the salt of the earth, very dependable, reliable. He married Pat, his sweetheart, and they had 4 children. There they are. They're all, much older at this point. And he was a mechanic, a machinist. He sometimes worked 2 jobs. He put his kids through private school, private music lessons. He coached all of their sports teams. And he was just, a great individual. Never had a negative thing to say about anyone. I'm going to go off of screen share here. Here I am. But as I mentioned, I can't remember having a one-on-one. I mean, like I said, I would see him, but it was always with other family members. However, we did have one thing that we always touched on, connected on, and that was lemon meringue pie. Well, my mom started this tradition on Valentine's Day where she would make each of us our individual lemon meringue pie. Well, as she got older, she didn't always, have the energy to make all those pies. Well, one time I happened to be in Los Angeles. I don't know where I was living at the time, but I happened to be in Los Angeles on Valentine's Day, and my mom wasn't up to making the lemon meringue pie. Well, Bernie kicked in. He loved to bake. And he had these 2 lemon trees in his backyard that seemed to produce lemons year round. And he made the most excellent lemon meringue pie. Flaky crust is my favorite pie in the world. Lots of zest. The meringue was lightly toasted. And it was he was famous, in my opinion, for lemon meringue pie. Well, in later years, when I would pop into Los Angeles, it wasn't necessarily on Valentine's Day, but I always, call Bernie up and say, "Hey, Bernie, are you up to making a lemon meringue pie? I'm in town." And he would kick in. Well, as time went on, his wife passed about 18 years ago, so he was a widow for the last 18 years. And the sad thing, well, it's sad anyways, but she passed about 6 months before he was to retire. And he was going to be the ultimate, poster boy retiree, right? He had trips planned. He was going to take Pat to see, more of the States. I could never get him to Europe, by the way, because, there's 50 states out there to see, right? And unfortunately, she passed away at, like I said, about six months before he retired. And I can imagine how, lonely that must have been. Well, as time went on, he slowly, gradually became more incapacitated, and they said that he had the onset of Alzheimer's. Well, how did this transpire? It affected his speech. And he started to speak, gradually, towards the end, it was, but that was a gradual process. Well, you know what? I don't think it was Alzheimer's. I think my brother Bernie had the skill, the gift of speaking in tongues. Yes. What does that mean? Well, speaking in tongues is a divine language. Some describe it as garble or gibberish or unintelligible or incoherent, but it's considered to be a divine language, a gift, a skill. And I think my brother Bernie was speaking in tongues. Well, what transpired in 2020 and then 2021? Well, as he became more incapacitated, he was no longer able to live at his home, even though he had care and everything. So his children decided to put him in a residence, a very nice residence in Los Angeles. There were only 5 other people, and he had 24/7 care. However, because of COVID, they wouldn't allow anyone to see him. So my niece Amy wasn't able to hold his hand, and my nephews weren't able to visit. And that is when I started calling Bernie on during this period. And I would, the staff there, they were great. They would set us up with the phones and everything so that we could have a conversation. And I would always tell them to, announce that it's Bernadette, his favorite sister who lives in Paris, is on the phone. And I could hear in the background a big guffaw from Bernie. Blah, 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 blah. And he would get on the phone, and we would just, have our one-on-one conversation. And I would talk, ask about his grandchild, Carmel. I would mention the word Carmel. And or I would talk about, lemon meringue pie, and that, or sports. I would, pretend like I knew something about the sports, and that would just, elicit more conversation. His speaking in tongues. Well, that well then one day in that it was February 3rd, and I here in a little bit outside of Paris, next to the Marne River, a beautiful river that's only 10 minutes away, and I often go on walks. So this was February 3rd, and I was on my walk, and I stopped at this one particular place, which was really beautiful and peaceful. And I was doing my stretches and looking at the sky, and I saw this big swan, this huge white swan, making a landing on the water. It was a trumpeter swan, and it was making that trumpet sound, and it landed. And I thought, Bernie's gone. This is it. And sure enough, it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon here on February 3rd, and he passed in Los Angeles about 7 o'clock that same day. And I just knew he was, no longer with us. But I did, like I said, I got those conversations, and in conjunction with that, my niece Amy, throughout this time, I was having many conversations with her. She was going through a lot. Sometimes our conversations were, 2 hours or so, and she was sharing stories about Bernie that I never knew, and stories of how wonderful it was she remembers, being taken to school, holding his hand, and just other stories. And at the same time, she was going through stuff and sharing love letters and pictures, and it was just wonderful. So I felt, I was really getting to know more of Bernie's story as we progressed. Well, in conclusion, I just wanted to say to Bernie, wherever you are, actually, I know where Bernie is. I know where you are, Bernie. You are not 6 feet under. You're not in that box. I know we grew up Catholic and all. I became a non-believer when I was quite young. So I don't believe you're in the box. I don't believe you're, up in heaven, if that exists. I think you're somewhere over the rainbow. And I wanted to play on the piano Somewhere Over the Rainbow for Bernie. And to say that, Bernie, I miss you. I miss your lemon meringue pies. I miss our conversations. And I want to play this song for you. So this is from your favorite sister who lives in Paris. So let me just do a little screen share here. And I'm just going to bring the computer over to the piano. Okay, this is for you, Bernie.
fantastic.
Thank you, Bernadette. It was, wow, very sweet. Very sweet. Thanks so much. Yeah. Um, so, with that, um, our next storyteller is, oh, you know what? I forgot it. It's Irv Levinson.
Hi, Irv.
Hey, Irv.
Hi.
Hey, Irv. Now, I met Irv originally in one of Sammy's singing classes at the Old Town School. So, Irv is definitely a songbird. But now I'm finding out that he's also a storyteller. Right, Sammy?
I know. I can't wait to hear. I'm so glad he was able to join us today
Yeah.
with his
Irv,
busy
tell me,
scheduling all of his grandchildren.
all your grandchildren. So, Irv, you grew up on the south side of Chicago, I hear.
I did, but in
Where'd
those
you,
days I didn't have 43 grandchildren.
43?
Well, soon to be 6.
Soon to be 6. It's just like 43. That's what I hear.
It's like age counting.
And did you grow up in Hyde Park or South Shore?
Uh, Outside
Right.
generally.
Over by there. Uh-huh. And you went to the University of
With the
Chicago.
Gallaghers from Shameless.
I don't know
No,
what
that's a in joke.
the
Never mind.
I'll Ruth know it. So now, Irv, the grandpa of soon to be 6, and I know they are the light of your life. And so, what do you do in your spare time now, Irv, besides singing?
Well, I take classes from Sammy,
Mm-hmm.
which you attend. And
Okay.
the first time I sang a song, I see this woman jump up and start dancing around the room with you naturally.
Yeah.
Uh, it got me into that song.
Oh my golly, Irv, remind me what song that was.
Uh, Sometime when the world is da 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 da. Yeah,
It was a foxtrot. I remember it now.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
Fred Astaire dance.
Oh, Irv. Thank you so much for remembering that. And where do you live now, Irv?
Highland Park.
Yes. And you had a career as, what was that, an organ grinder?
Yes, I was an organ grinder, but in my spare time, but in my primary time, I was a trial lawyer for 40 plus years.
Oh my golly, I bet you've seen a lot.
I've won some and I've lost some.
Wow. And I
Yeah.
think that's the name of the song you're going to sing, right? I've loved some, I want some, I lost some.
Not singing that song, but it's the story of my life.
So, Irv, I know you have a lot of amazing stories to tell, and the one that you're going to tell us today is my Vietnam trip, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So, help me welcome Irv Levinson from Highland Park. Uh, and if everyone could mute, if you're not muted, that would be super.
I went to mute myself, but I know better.
You may not mute.
Last night I had the strangest dream I never dreamed before. I dreamed the world had all agreed to put an end to war. Little Pete Seeger number. December 2, 1969, 52 years ago, a stranger chose my birthday, September 13, 1947, from a huge barrel of 365 birth dates. It was the Vietnam War draft lottery, the biggest lottery in my life, anyway. Last night, I learned that those born on September 13, 1947, will very soon be conscripted into the U.S. Army, and soon after that would be sent to the Vietnam War. I also learned that I was one of the unlucky ones, a loser in the lottery. This fateful trap, the trap of going to Vietnam, would not have occurred had I been born 37 minutes later on September 14 instead of September 13. I would have won the lottery and escaped the draft, but that didn't occur. Today, and we've got a audience of all ages. I think my grandkids are the youngest, but they go up in age. Today, the Vietnam War is largely forgotten. And yet, at the time, there were, counting North Vietnamese, South Vietnamese, and American soldiers, there were somewhere between 2.5 million to 3.4 million people killed in that war. Many more were left maimed, and Agent Orange is still today wreaking havoc on new generations of Vietnamese. For me, that war began one night when I came home from college, and saw on the 6 o'clock news try and get this right.
Oh, yeah.
A 9-year-old South Vietnamese girl, Phan Thi Kim Phuc, terrorized and naked with the clothes on her body burned off, running down Highway 1 in Trang Bang, South Vietnam, to escape a mistaken bombing attack by the South Vietnamese troops on their own people. Napalm came down, burning and disintegrating plants, trees, and human flesh. This controversial picture was almost not published. But once it was, it's credited with shortening the horrific Vietnam War and with changing many people's hearts. President Nixon at one time, this may sound familiar, claimed wrongly that the picture was a hoax. Kim Phuc became known as the Napalm Girl. Kim Phuc's grandmother witnessed the napalm strike that resulted in her being hospitalized for 18 months, and which also resulted in the death of the grandmother's other grandchild, a 3-year-old boy. After watching the evening news that night, like so many others, my dreams turned to nightmares. I'll return to Kim Phuc later. My first effort to escape the Vietnam War was my effort to sign up for the U.S. Reserves. At least the reserves would result in buying me some time. And so I went to sign up, and this large Army Reserve officer, after my battery of tests, said to me, "Young man, you have failed all your tests. You don't have what it takes to be a U.S. Army Reserve soldier." And then he sort of incidentally said, "Would you care for a cigar?" Well, I hated cigars, but I decided I'd better take his cigar and join the cigar smoking brotherhood of the U.S. Army Reserves. And sure enough, as soon as I did, his whole attitude changed toward me. He said, "Son, you are an absolute physical mess, but I did note that you scored fairly well on our intelligence test. I could put you on the wait list to serve in the Reserve Intelligence Unit in North Carolina. Intelligence unit? Me? North Carolina? That sounded good. Wait list. Yes, son, you'll be put on a wait list, but I'll see that you get called up within the next 12 to 24 months. Damn. My escape hatch had opened wide to North Carolina and closed just as quickly because there was no way I could wait 12 to 24 months without being sent as part of the Army first to the Vietnam battleground. So I moved to my second effort to escape service. I noticed, by the way, Bernadette, that one of your brothers served, one of your brothers avoided service. I was out trying as hard as I could to avoid it. My second effort came at the U.S. Army Physical Center. I arrived there hoping I'll fail my physical, like apparently I did at the reserves, but I see immediately before me a young man wearing bright pink, frilly girls' underwear. And then I meet another guy who comes up to me and says, I'm an ordained high priest in the Holy Church of Peace and Freedom, each one with a different strategy for escaping the war. And yet another guy who just stood yelling crazy like, Yaga Bugga, kill them, kill those gooks, man, woman, child, baby. They took him and they took the rest too. So I ended up lining up with 19 to 22-year-old boys like myself, and we were told, bend over and spread your cheeks for your physical exam. And so we did. And at the end of that, the doctor who examined me bent over, said, son, good news. You have passed every single test. Well, finally, having now passed the Army physical and being about a month off from service, I quickly petitioned, heartfelt petition to my draft board saying, I am a conscientious objector. Please give me CO status. They answered it 2 weeks later with a little postcard that said, CO status denied. Kind regards, U.S. Draft Board 439. But then, folks, on the verge of going, I miraculously found a way out. I wrangled my way on occupational deferment as a history teacher at Vashon High School, the last all-black high school in the state of Missouri, in St. Louis, Missouri. It seems that no one else, not even those facing Vietnam, wanted to serve as a teacher at Vashon High School. Poverty, crime, racism, war lived right at the doorstep of each student who attended that school. There were 1,000 horrible stories, injustices, frustrations, poverty, police, the whole gambit. And yet, I told you about 4 decades as a lawyer. I loved those 2 years teaching. What I learned from those students at Vashon stayed with me all these years. They made me wiser, those students did. They made me more caring, more alive. They brought me hope every day and despair too. After teaching just 2 years, I enrolled in law school, even as the body bags of dead American soldiers continued to arrive home. I never told you that I was the courageous hero in this story. Far from it. I ultimately escaped my Vietnam trap, but Kim Phuc did not. About a year ago, I decided to Google the Napalm Girl, like you might Google an old friend who you'd lost touch with. I learned that over the years, Kim Phuc had become a refugee from Vietnam and then a refugee from Cuba, where she went to college, and then ended up as a citizen of Canada. She endured 17 separate major surgeries on her body because of the bombing that day. And today, she's a mother of two living in Toronto with her Vietnamese husband. Kim Phuc has become a leading advocate for world peace and children's rights, an ambassador to UNESCO. Has the Napalm Girl somehow managed to escape her horrific fate? Has she managed to avoid hatred and bitterness for what happened that day? As the French say, may we, but yes. Kim Phuc today, winner of the Dresden Peace Prize. In her words, forgiveness has made me free from hatred. I still have scars all over my body and severe pain every single day, but my heart is cleansed. Napalm is very powerful, her words, but faith, forgiveness, and love is far more powerful. I want to tell all the little girls who suffer like me, have a dream. Please keep that dream alive in your heart. Through it all, Kim Phuc has managed to live a courageous and significant and dignified life, all of which seemed to elude me in my past 4 decades as a semi-successful American trial lawyer. To my hero, Phan Thi Kim Phuc, when you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown, blown. Walk on, with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. Never walk alone. Last night I had the strangest dream I never dreamed before. I dreamed the war world had all agreed to put an end to war. But yes, Kim Phuc accepting the Dresden Peace Prize. Thank you.
That was an incredible story.
That was just beautiful. Wow. I mean, your story in itself and how you became a history teacher, everything that you had to go through, but then putting Kim Phuc's story there too is just so moving. I know I never saw you cry. There's people on here who, we were alive during that time. I know there's men on here who went through some of the things you went through because they're the same age. Erwin, my guy pal Erwin, he was on here, and I've heard his story. So, my God, thank you so much for opening your heart. It was just beautiful.
Thank you.
Sammy?
I know.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I mean, it was a horrible time. It was a scary time to live through.
Very scary. Oh my golly. So thank you, Irv. Thanks so much.
Glad I put you in a good mood.
Yeah.
Now we can do a little dancing.
Yeah, we can do a little dancing. Thanks, Irv. Next, we have up my dear friend, my dear friend for 25 plus years, Macia Brainin. Macia is here to tell her story. Macia, hi.
Hi, Kiki.
Hi, thanks so much for coming on. And thanks for Marcia's friends who have come on to see her tell her story. Marsh,
Hey,
remind me, where were you born?
Chicago.
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 And where? And tell me a little bit, because I always like this part of the story, because you grew up in a building on the north side of Chicago, where kind of apartment building where everybody knew each other.
Everybody knew each other. Back in the day, nobody was called, no adult was called by their first name. They were all aunt and uncle or Mr. and Mrs. So in that building of 6 families, there were 12 aunts and uncles.
Yeah.
And everybody was a cousin.
Everybody was a cousin. In fact, to this day, one of those cousins is still with you, as I recall. One of my favorite parts of the story is I know cousin Deborah's mom and dad, if I'm right, who moved first to Skokie? Deborah's parents or yours? So you guys were in East Rogers Park.
We were in East Rogers Park. My parents came home one day and said to my Aunt Seal and Uncle Harold, "We're going to Skokie," and Seal said, "Not without us." But she moved on the other side of the street because they didn't want to be too close to us. So instead they were 6 houses and a street between us.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's great. And Marcia, you and I have met originally from our meditation and yogic breathing group, right?
You were sitting in that group of beginners at University of Chicago.
Yes, I was.
25 years ago.
25 years ago, actually, this June, I saw Marcia. She was like kind of one of the organizers, and it was kind of like every time we'd meet, they'd acknowledge people's birthdays, and Marcia, along with her cousin Deborah, brought up the cake like for everybody's birthdays, and I thought to myself, oh, someday I want to be the cake girl. And what happened is I got to know the cake girl. Very good. So thank you.
But you became the set design girl.
That I did. Yes, I thank you and thank you. So Marcia is going to tell us a story, and the name of it is That's Life. And I don't want to get into it without acknowledging the fact that Marcia is a home for wayward kitties.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep, that doesn't need a home somehow turns up on my porch and says, "Take me in."
And that's what happens. Yeah. Okay, my dear. So Marcia's story is...
I'm also a home for wayward friends.
Well, that too. I wasn't going to say that because there's some people might be asking you then if they could move in, but She took me in when my house was sold. It was before I was moving to Arizona. I lived with Marcia for 2 weeks. She took me in. So thank you. So Marcia's story is Marsh.
So my story is about my life. And it is also about cancer, because cancer is the one subject that is on everybody's mind. We all know somebody or many people who've had cancer, but we don't like to talk about it. It's always kept quiet. I don't know if we're afraid that we're going to catch it or we're going to get it or what, but it's just that horrible disease that people don't like to talk about. And because I lived most of my life blindfolded, I was totally unaware of the disease. I didn't realize what it meant. A friend of my parents contracted leukemia when he was just 15 years old. And one night we went over to Gene and Howard's to see Chucky, who was living in a hospital bed in the living room. And it was apparent that he was dying, but it meant nothing to me because I really hadn't been confronted with it, and because I lived in a dream world where if you didn't like what was going on, you would just float away somewhere. So when we had gone to see Chucky, I was told we were going for a visit, and to me, it was a visit, never realizing it was the last time I was going to see him, and that in a month he would be placed in a casket and put in the ground, never to take a breath of air again. And that's what happened to him. Never went to the funeral because my parents always hid the children from the funerals. So by the time we got to the house to pay a condolence call, it was like a fantasy, because you don't really see what's going on. You're hidden from the dynamics of life. A couple of years later, a girl I went to high school with that I had become friendly with contracted leukemia while I was away at college. Same thing. I came home, missed her funeral, went to the Chivy house. She wasn't there. And it was very easy for me to float off into la la land and not really comprehend or deal with what was going on. 8 years later, it was my Uncle Harold. And he contracted cancer. And 3 months later, he was gone. That's when it really hit me, because he was Uncle Harold. He was there when I came home from the hospital. But again, he was older. Older people die. I still didn't comprehend what was going on, and I just didn't understand the whole concept. My parents moved to Florida when I was 35. And my mom and I were really, really close. I talked to her on the phone every day, sometimes 2 times, 3 times a day, just to tell her a little something that was going on. One day I called her and I said, "What's wrong?" To which she responded, "Nothing." This had gone on for about a week. Every day when I talked to her, I said, "What was wrong? What was going on?" And one day it was enough. She started screaming at me at the top of her lungs, "You're making me crazy. I don't want to know. I don't want to talk to you. Nothing's wrong." My father got on the phone. He said, "What's going on? Why are you and Mom fighting for a change?" And I'm crying. And I said, "I know something's wrong. I know something's wrong with her." A week later, I was on a plane to go see them for vacation. And the night before I left, my mom came into my bedroom and said, "I have lung cancer. I'm being operated on next week. You probably saved my life because your father made me go to the doctor after that last conversation." It was just something in her voice. She had surgery the week after I left. It was horrible. The chemo was horrible. The radiation was horrible. It was in 7 of her lymph nodes. What happens with small cell lung cancer? Of course, my mother smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day for 40 years, is that it goes into remission very quickly and comes out of remission very quickly. Year later, they came to Chicago. She was in remission. And something was wrong. She was falling. She slept the whole time. She just wasn't herself. And they left to go back to Florida on a Thursday. They always traveled on Thursdays for some reason. And Sunday night, I was doing a self-exam and I found a lump. Called my doctor Monday, Tuesday ahead, and what did I have? I had a mammogram. And Wednesday I was on a plane to Florida because my mother was in the hospital very ill. I stayed with them for a week. I came back to Chicago. I had surgery scheduled, and unfortunately my mother died the night before I was supposed to have surgery. So I was back on a plane to go to her funeral, which I never wanted to go to, not to my mom's. And I went to the funeral, came home a day later, everybody else sat chivvy, and I was fine, but it was a dreadful, dreadful year. But a year passed and I was healthy. 2 years passed, 5 years passed, 7 years passed, I was out of trouble. Nobody ever bothered to tell me that 15 years later, it was very common for women to have a recurrence of breast cancer. So I had a recurrence of breast cancer, had surgery. My surgeon called me, said, I don't like the looks of your biopsy. I want to do a mastectomy. What she basically said was, you don't need that breast. Let's get rid of it. So of course, I looked at the positive side of this, went to a plastic surgeon, and I was so fat that they were able to take the fat from my stomach and create a new breast and do a tummy tuck that they charge Social Medicare for. Once again, no chemo, no radiation. I was fine. A year later, I contracted cancer again, but not breast cancer, a completely different kind of cancer, anorectal cancer, which maybe 6,000 people a year get. I couldn't deal with it. I didn't do anything for 5 months. So that by the time I dealt with it, it was stage 3, knock on wood, could have been stage 4. Wonderful doctors. One day I went for radiation and I was sitting in the waiting room and I looked at all the people in the waiting room and I said to my sister, nobody smiles. And in that moment, I decided we have a choice. We could be happy or we could be sad. And I choose to make people happy and I choose to be happy. 35 visits later, a woman said to me, I hear you're leaving this week. And I said, yeah, I'm done. I'm healthy, I'm done. 3 times a charm. And I said, why? And she said, well, I feel so bad that you're going. You're the only one around who smiles. Life gives us a choice. We could make lemonade or we can get a lemon. And I chose lemonade. So I was done and I went on and I thought that 3 times was a charm and lived my life. And all of a sudden I got hit with this little blip in life of skin cancer. Now, mind you, to the average person, skin cancer is nothing. But when you hear it for that term for the 4th time, you think, cancer, what's next? Sometimes when I'm really alone and I'm really looking at the truth, I say, what is next? And then I think, whatever it's going to be, it's really out of my control, and I will just survive until I don't. Why? Because that's life, and we all just have to live with whatever we're given. So, Kiki, that's life.
Wow. Thanks, Marsh. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you for just bearing your soul too. My goodness. I'm sure there's a lot of people not only here who love you and know you, but so many people can connect with this story, Marsh. There's things that I've heard you say that I've never heard you put quite this way, so thanks.
Would you like to sing for us?
Well, it, thank you. Yes, Marcia's not a singer, so Sammy and I are gonna sing her song. Thanks, Marcia. That's life. That's what the people say. You're riding high in April, shot down in May. I know I'm gonna change that tune when I'm back on top in June. I said that's life, and as funny as it may seem, some people get their kicks stomping on a dream. Don't tell them the dream, but I don't let me get me down. 'Cause this final world, it keeps spinning around. I've been a puppet, a pauper, a pirate, a poet, a pawn and a queen. I've been up and down and over and out. I know one thing, I find myself flat on my face. Pick myself up and get back in the race. That's life. I tell you, I can't deny it. Thought of quitting, baby, but your heart won't buy it. And if I didn't think it was worth one single try, I'd jump right on that big bird. I'd fly. My. Thank you, Marcia. Thanks for your story, and thanks for letting me sing your tune.
Thank you, Kiki.
Thanks, darling. Wow. Wow, what a day this has been. Hey, Sam?
I know, some really, really powerful stories.
Powerful stories. Thank you very much. Believe it or not, we have one more wonderful story. We have our friend Ruth Fuerst. Ruth, hi. How are we going to get you to talk? There you go. The funny thing I found out about you, Ruth, is you know Irv from high school.
Well, I didn't want to contradict him, but actually we don't.
We don't.
No, we actually grew up in the same neighborhood, but we know each other because some good friends of ours is his brother and sister-in-law. So that's how I think, originally met.
Oh, that's fact or fiction.
That was probably about 30 years ago. So it has, or 40 years. It was a long time ago.
Long time ago, Ruth.
Yeah. So that was not a lie, but we did not meet in high school. And he is not older than I am. I won't tell him, I won't go into that, but you are not older than I am, Irv.
Again,
Just don't dye your hair.
He did the math real fast during his story when he told what year.
Well, you know what? I wrote down the years for everybody, actually. Hey, Ruth, I know you from, again, Sammy's Pop-Up Piano Bar. How did you get into singing?
Honey, you should ask. Was this a setup or what? You don't even know what my story is about.
I know nothing.
I tell you because you're going to hear in the story, and I don't want to give it away.
Okay, so then let me ask you another question. Sammy, what should we ask Ruth?
Well, Ruth has something else that she loves to do. I think that she does for a living. She is
A
a
baker.
No, guess again.
A seamstress.
No, it's going to come up too in my story, but I'm a psychotherapist.
Oh, excellent. Are you
Oh,
in private practice, Ruth?
psychotherapist.
Psychopath. Ruth, are you in private practice?
psychotherapist. What?
Are you in private practice?
Yeah.
Very good. Where did you go to school?
University of Chicago.
There you have it. You stayed in the neighborhood all the way through.
I did.
Good. Well, Ruth, I can't wait to hear this story because it already has two facts in it that I touched on just by asking questions, and I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, you're going to hear.
Okay.
Like
So,
it or not.
yeah, Ruth's.
It's on a very different note than the rest. So a bit less serious.
Oh, good. Ruth's story is the name of Ruth's story is Daddy's Girl. Right, Ruth?
That is
Uh,
it.
I can't wait to hear it. Thanks. Let us welcome Ruth Fuerst.
Da-da-da-dum. Okay, here goes. So, picture this 3-year-old little girl standing on her seat in the balcony in Mandel Hall at the University of Chicago, singing along at the top of her lungs to I Am the Captain of the Pinafore, and keeping time by shaking her box of raisinets while her adoring father looked on proudly. Then picture this guy sitting near them at the end of the show saying, "If I never see either of the two of you again, it will be way too soon." Well, that little girl was me, and the father was my dad. And that was the rather inauspicious beginning to my illustrious cabaret career. Fast forward. I'm 11 years old. Dad comes into my room around 9:30 one night. I'm in bed. Don't worry, it's not creepy. It's a little odd, but not creepy. He says, "Hey, Ruthie, how'd you like to get dressed and come with me to the Gate of Horn tonight? Will Holt is singing there. Mom needs to stay home with Danny, my little brother." I didn't know what the Gate of Horn was. Turned out it was a grungy little folk club on the north side. Or who Will Holt was. He was a semi-well-known folk singer of the day. But it sounded like fun, so I said, sure. My mom let me wear nylons and my dress shoes and even a tiny bit of lipstick. So I was in heaven. That started our little ritual of late night jaunts to the Gate of Horn, the Happy Medium, Mr. Kelly's, etc. This guy and his kid till I was 13 or 14 and didn't want to go anymore. But here's the even weirder part. We didn't go just as audience members. No, my dad was a lyricist, but he couldn't sing very well, and I sort of could. So he brought me along to demo his songs to fairly famous groups like the Kingston Trio, the Limelighters, and Chad Mitchell Trio. There I'd be, this 11-year-old kid backstage with these groups, singing and trying to sell my dad's songs. Here's an example. They tell you love and honor are the stuff that can't be bought, that evil individuals will always come to naught. They say that you'll be blessed if you will hold the proper thought. Well, that's a lot of malarkey, that's a lot of baloney, that's a lot of the well-known bull. And it goes on from there. When I wasn't going to nightclubs with Dad, I would pretend that the bay window in our living room was a stage. I memorized the scores from Dad's favorite shows, My Fair Lady, Guys and Dolls, Fiorello, Bye Bye Birdie, Kiss Me Kate, Pins and Needles, Pal Joey, all of Cole Porter's stuff. I dance around and perform for my family, especially my dad, who would crack up, especially when I belted out bawdy songs like Always True to You, Darling, in my fashion, from Kiss Me Kate, or Spanish Rose from Bye Bye Birdie, or Zip from Pal Joey. When I wasn't prancing around our living room, entertaining my family, I managed to get gigs entertaining at Jewish old folks' homes with a pianist friend of mine from high school. We cracked those people up as well with renditions of old Yiddish songs. There we were, two teenage girls regaling these senior citizens with songs from their youth. Here's an example of that. Sonntag Bulbes, Montag Bulbes, Dienstag und Mittwoch Bulbes, Donnerstag und Freitag Bulbes, Shabbos in der Novena a Bulbe, Kugale, Sonntag a weitere Bulbes. How that went. So, probably the high point of my early singing career was when I got picked to sing Adelaide's Lament from Guys and Dolls for our high school talent show. I was 16 and a little shy, believe it or not, so not too many people knew I could sing. I did do a mean Brooklyn accent since my dad was from New York and I knew how he sounded. The average unmarried female, basically insecure, due to some long frustration, may react with psychosomatic symptoms difficult to endure, involving the upper respiratory tract. In other words, just from waiting around for that plain little band of gold, a person can develop a cold, and so forth and so on. So, the local newspaper said I brought the house down. So there it was. Maybe it wasn't just my dad who thought I was okay at this. Maybe Broadway was in the cards. That summer, my family took a short cruise, another talent show opportunity. Encouraged by my debut performance of Adelaide, I decided, with Dad's encouragement, of course, to sing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, one of his favorites. A cappella, because there was no one to accompany me. Turned out the stage was the deck of the ship. To approximate the look of Carol Channing, who'd made this song famous, I decided to put this white mop on my head and wear some kind of a slinky dress. I had no idea how to use the mic, which was on a stand, so I proceeded to drag the mic around on the stand. The boat hit some rocky waters and kept swaying a lot from side to side, so I'm trying to hang on to the mic and sing my song and not lose the mop on my head. A kiss on the hand may be quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend. A kiss may be grand, but it won't pay the rental on your humble flat or help you at the automat. Men grow old and girls cold, and girls grow old, and we all lose our charms in the end. But square cut or pear shaped, these rocks won't lose their shape. Diamonds are a girl's best friend, and so on. People in the audience are turning green and jumping up to run to the bathroom to throw up. Was it seasickness or was it me and my performance? I never knew for sure, but let's just say that if Adelaide was the high point of my early singing career, Diamonds was the low point. I may have brought the house down, but not exactly the way I wanted to. So maybe Broadway was not in the cards, though Dad wasn't giving up on it. I went to the University of Wisconsin in Madison and majored in French and psychology, thinking I'd likely be better suited to become a psychotherapist, but still not totally ruling out a musical theater career. I decided to audition for Threepenny Opera. Listening to the other performers before me, I thought, oh my God, these people are incredible. I was so outclassed, it wasn't even funny. I can't remember if I actually stayed and auditioned or if I ran away, but needless to say, I did not get into Threepenny. Broadway was becoming dimmer and dimmer in my mind. I was doing okay in my psych classes, so I decided that was probably that. No more dreams of a singing career. I completely pushed it out of my mind. I go to grad school at the University of Chicago to become a clinical social worker and focus all my energy on that. Though Dad frequently voiced his disappointment that I wasn't even giving Broadway a try. But that went in one ear and out the other. I finished grad school and moved to New York to be with my then boyfriend, now husband, and basically forgot that I ever sang. Took a very challenging job, working with difficult kids and their families. And of course, like most new aspiring psychotherapists, what do? I go into my own psychotherapy. In the course of work with my therapist, one of the main issues that came up was my tendency to get over-involved with kids and families I was working with. My therapist suggested I get a hobby. A hobby? I had no hobby or time for one. That's the craziest thing I ever heard. Then one day I'm sitting on the train going to Westchester at my job, thinking about what my therapist had suggested, and like a flash, I remembered, singing. It hit me like a bolt of lightning. So much had I pushed it out of my mind. I used to love to sing. I almost started singing Adelaide right then and there, but I didn't. I was so excited. What did I do? Was I started voice lessons and joined a choir. The choir didn't last long. I was too much of an egomaniac. I hated it, but was loving singing again. I decided to take some classes in song interpretation with Chita Rivera at the Uta Hagen, very fancy, studio in the Village. That I liked, but guess what? Here we go again. My classmates had been studying voice all their lives and performing in New York for years. Again, outclassed. So sorry, Dad, I don't think I'm quite up to this. Once again, bye-bye Broadway. I chickened out of auditioning for anything in New York. I didn't have the stuff. My by this time husband and I moved back to Chicago. We're 30. I throw myself into being a clinical social worker and a mother to our son, who was born a few years later. I started private practice. I taught clinical social work. I did a lot of grant writing. As a mom, I spent lots of time with our son, going to Little League games, soccer matches, ceramic classes, and guitar classes. Other than singing him to sleep and singing at our family seders, I pretty much forgot about singing again. Since we were living close to my parents, they often tried to get me to sing, especially Dad's songs, but for the most part, I wouldn't. I'm really not very good, I'd say, remembering those experiences in Madison and New York, where I'd been so humbled, hearing singers who were truly professional. You guys think I'm good, but it's just because I'm your daughter. I'm a therapist. I am not a singer. Mom died in 1998. I sang some of her favorite Yiddish songs at her funeral. Dad died about 12 years later. I sang When the Saints Come Marching In, which he'd always wanted, at his funeral, and Haydn Röslein, a song from his childhood, at his funeral. 3 months after Dad died, almost to the day, a friend of ours invited us to go with her to a cabaret performance at Cyrano's Bistro, another sort of grungy basement venue under the main restaurant, kind of reminiscent of the Gate of Horn, where Claudia Homel and Bob Marine were performing. It was kind of expensive, and I had no idea what we were in for, but what the hell? We went. Another bolt of lightning. Like on the train, going to work that day some 30 years before. This is what I want to do. I was in my 60s and had been thinking of giving up some of my teaching and doing more writing about my experiences in the field. But that night, writing, at least clinical writing, flew out the window. I want to do what Claudia's doing. I need to do what Claudia's doing. I want to go to clubs like I used to with Dad and sing and tell stories. And now that I'm a bit older, maybe dispense some wisdom through song. not through clinical articles. It felt like something larger than I had taken hold of me and was drawing me to cabaret. I was powerless to resist. Don't ask me how to don't ask me not to sing. I've simply got to sing. In 2 or 3, 4 time, I'm always entertaining. In parks on benches there, I sing to wenches there. And though we may get wet, we duet while it's raining. On my bike I hike and musicalize, and in planes refrains keep rending the skies. Asleep I've often brayed a lively serenade. There's not a thing I don't do with a song. And so on. Anyway, etc., etc. I asked Claudia if she would teach me to sing cabaret style. She said, of course. If you know Claudia, you know, of course, she'd say, of course. I got myself a voice teacher and a music director. I had to sing. And so became my cabaret career. And here I am. It took me decades to find my way back to singing from those days of my first performance at HMS Pinafore. But I finally did. My only wish is that my dad and mom could see me. They would have been thrilled. So why do I do it? Why do I feel this total pull to sing? For many reasons, but not the least of which is that it's a way of keeping my parents alive in my heart. They always loved hearing me sing, and somehow I believe they're still somewhere listening. That's your cue, Sammy. I look up at the evening sky and see 10,000 stars. One shines a little brighter. It tells me there you are. And though the days are passing by, dear memories still you'll always be beside me when I sing. Because you shared your heart with me, I learned what's right and wrong. You'll always be a part of me in every single song. And if I'm singing torch songs or crooning jazz or swing, you'll always be beside me when I sing. There is a time for crying. There is a time to grieve. Centuries are flying. I always will believe. Longer than forever, again I'll hold your hands and we will be together. I know that that's the plan. You said to hold my head up high, to be all I can be. It's only now I'm learning why you gave these gifts to me. Each time I'm entertaining, it's your soul that takes wing. You'll always be beside me, to teach, to love, to guide me. You'll always be beside me when I sing. Thanks, Sammy. That song was written by Carla Gordon and Wayne Richards. Carla is a friend of mine and a local singer-songwriter. So, thanks.
Wow. Gorgeous. Thank you, Ruth. You really took us through a time period. It was just such a beautifully compelling story. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me to do it and giving me the opportunity.
Oh, I want to thank all of our story listeners too. Thanks for tuning in today. Um, Usually, this is the portion where we get to ask if the stories are fact or fiction. Does anyone have any questions of our storytellers?
Yeah, everyone can ask one question of any of the storytellers you choose. I have a question, actually. If I don't mind going first, thank you. Irv, how old were you in 1969?
I was 21,
Okay, thank you.
22.
Two.
Oh, I have a question then too. I have a question of Ruth. My one question.
Yeah.
So Ruth, when
Like you expect me to tell the truth about my age?
I was keeping track, and the ages weren't always matching up, Irv, so I just wanted to clear that
Okay.
up.
I am a lawyer, you know.
Yeah, and you know what that means. Traditionally. Now, I'm not saying you, Irv. Sammy. Sammy.
I had a question for Ruth when she was 11 years old and singing her dad's songs in the bars. What was she able to sell any of those songs to any?
Yeah, they did. Some of them. Uh, I I'm trying to remember whether it was Chad Mitchell. A couple of the groups bought a couple, performed a few of his songs, and well, Will Holt did a lot of them, and Bob Gibson did several. I didn't mention him, but
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, he wasn't. My dad was never a well-known songwriter, but I mean, lyricist, but he had a number of his songs sung by fairly well-known groups.
Wow.
Yeah,
Thanks. I mean,
and by this 11-year-old Pisher.
that's a one-woman show in itself right there, Ruth. Anyone else have any questions for any of our storytellers? I'll take that as a
See a lot of names and no.
Let me see. I'm gonna check in the chat. See if it don't quote maybe. Oh. Everyone is. Someone sent me a personal message. Huh.
Asking you a question?
Yeah, well, they're actually were giving me some facts, but if you believe it, someone was like snitching on somebody. I've already asked my one question, so I can't look. So now, these stories were just so amazing and heartfelt today. Usually
They were truly
this is the
heartfelt.
time of the show where we ask people to vote whether it's fact or fiction, but today seems super special with how
They were stories from people's lives, and I have to concur that I think they are all fact.
I think they are all fact too.
Beautiful stories.
Does anyone not agree with that?
I have to ask Bernadette too. Bernadette, you played lovely today. You are a lovely piano player. That was really nice.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Thank you.
I was gonna actually, Sammy, I was gonna ask you to be my backup in case I couldn't do it.
Great, you did.
Since nobody else is asking any other questions, I'm going to take a liberty. And Bernadette, if you don't want to answer, that's okay. But again, I was keeping notes. What year were you born?
58.
Okay. So these are so heartfelt. The only thing I can imagine would not be the truth is if something like little like that was a little bit different, like a little date or I don't know, where the club was or something like that. Don't you think, Sammy?
I know.
That's beautiful.
I think it's telling.
Well, I'm glad that no one doubted that my brother didn't speak in tongues.
I don't doubt that at all. It's true, right?
I see a raised hand.
Yeah, I just have one question, which is completely extraneous.
Yes,
But since everything today has been true, I think I have to point out that, at least as I'm looking at it, that Eiffel Tower is a complete fraud.
It is truly a picture of the Eiffel Tower.
Oh my gosh, I've been found out because you probably did the time conversion and knew that it's 11:35 at night.
No, I'm not that smart. What
Oh.
happened was, when you talked about walking out of your house and walking into the forest, I've been to the Eiffel Tower and there are no forests right nearby. So it was a very simple deduction.
Well, actually, when I first moved to Paris in 2001, I was very, very close to the Eiffel Tower. It wasn't my view, but now I'm a little bit outside of Paris, in Nogent-sur-Marne, so by the Marne River. But
So we now have to question all of your story in light of this stage set.
This is true, James.
Anyway, thank you.
Fiction. So, yes, Ruth, was everything on that story true?
Everything on the story was true. We didn't go as often as I suggest, as it sounded, but we did go to, I did demo his songs to those groups, and not as regularly as it might have sounded, but I did do it.
And you wore nylons and little
And I
lipstick.
wore nylons, and I got to wear a little bit of lipstick. Oh my God, that was the best part for me.
I'm with you. I remember those days. Bernadette, fact or fiction?
everything was fact,
Thank you.
except my background. Okay, I've been found out.
Okay, Jane.
It was not part of the story, anyways.
Yeah, right.
Irv,
The liar.
lawyer, professional
Liar or lawyer.
lawyer.
The story was true. If there were any dates off, it's because we're human. I was trying to get it, what happened 50 some years ago, as accurately as I could. I will say that it's my brother's birthday, and I always say that he's 5 years older than me. Today, May 1. But happy birthday, bro. The truth is, he's 5 years younger than me.
Well, happy birthday, Brother Levinson. Thank you. Thanks so much. Marcia, my dear Marcia. I know. Yeah,
You've been there through thick and thin.
I know. You've really, Marcia's attitude through her journey has been just amazing.
It's the glass half full versus,
Yeah.
yep, beautiful.
And the truth is, her glass got full and overflowing. Her cup runneth over for sure. So thank you, Marcia, for sharing that.
Thank
you
you.
for your life. Yeah, thank you for letting me sing That's Life. I would have never sang to Frank Sinatra, so thank you.
Thank you.
Sammy, thank you for that May song in the beginning. I loved it.
Well, thank you. Oh, thank you all for joining us today, because this is really interesting. Actually, I'm glad to give everybody the opportunity to tell a story that's near and dear, and something that changed their life. I think everybody's story today changed their life somewhat, and it really made probably them the people they are today, made us see life differently too, and appreciate the things that we've lived through. Thank you all very much.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. Please tune in next June. I believe it's June 1st or the first Saturday in June.
Yeah.
Fact or fiction again, and I can't remember our working title, but I'll send it around. Sammy, of course, has so many fabulous pop-up piano bars and song sessions during the week. Even if you're not a singer, it's fun to listen, and if you are a singer, join in.
Oh yeah, and if you happen to look on Eventbrite, I hope that you checked out the links of our guests, their stories, their bios. Bernadette's got her story salon is monthly. She features different guests, different artists, different story. It's actually the performers' life stories that they talk about, right? Oh, wow. Yeah, it's very interesting. She had a guy on, an Irish guitar player on last time that I was on with her, the last show. It was very interesting. And the next show is coming up when, Bernadette?
May 22nd.
And it's called Story Salon.
Story Salon.
Storytelling Salon.
Storytelling Salon.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's super. Yeah. And our next one is June 5th. So that'll be
June 5th, yes.
Yeah. So thanks again, Sammy. Is there anything you'd like to say or sing on the way out?
Well, you know, I don't know. No, I didn't prepare anything.
How about Bernadette's jingle?
Oh, you know what? I don't have it like in front of me. I'm not prepared. It's like I wrote it and did it, but it's not something I play all the time, so I don't know it.
Well, could you do a better version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow? Maybe a jazz version, or?
I don't think I could do better than you. I thought you did an awesome job.
I'm sure you can.
Everybody have a fabulous weekend, and thanks so much for sharing your life with us.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Next time I'll prepare.
Thank,
Thank you so much.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Christina, for joining us.
thanks, Sammy and Kiki and everyone who attended.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you,
We're
Ruth.
recording this and we'll put it on the Fact or Fiction Facebook page. You can share with your friends or yourself. That's a good one, okay? Thank you.